Hello, I am doing a slide presentation of what I've been working with. I'm just testing Facebook as an interface for sharing that. So basically, I'm working on a business concept called a Holoscale, a new business acceleration approach with collaborators such as Farsam Shadab and Allison Witherspoon. And we've been in conversation for over a year about how we could combine the best insights from platform cooperatism, integral thinking, even meta-modern thinking, to understand how to create business structures of the future, new ways of designing the marketplace and integrating companies in relationships that are desirable from every stakeholder perspective. So, this is going to get a little bit heavy, and understand that this is a pretty new concept. But what I've been working on is what I call holoscaling. And holoscaling is different than traditional business in many ways. First, the goal is to scale growing services that maximize human performance through collaborative strategy. So the thinking is that we're not simply maximizing the company revenues, efficiency, or effectiveness, but we are always maximizing human performance, which means that humans get to decide what human performance entails, as long as it's measurable, as long as it's good, beautiful, true, and in some way better than what preceded it. As a treatment for an illness, a solution for an educational problem, an approach to societal disintegration, relationships, as long as we're working on maximizing human performance. The second goal of holoscaling is to organically grow small to medium-sized companies via alliancing, rather than growing products by the usual, start a company, create a patent, sell it off to a bigger company, exit, cash out, take your money, which is how 3 out of 4 tech companies operate. It's the usual Silicon Valley model, which is how do you cash out to the biggest fish with the most money and the most power. That's the scale logic of traditional scaling. Holoscaling basically says you can sidestep that process and organically grow Main Street businesses, small businesses, personalized businesses, without having to make such deals. Now, there's 4 contrasting strategies for growth in the current time. We like to think of pretty much every product as a service. We are in a service-dominant reality, which means the number of products is diminishing and the number of services is rising. So even a product is an encapsulated version of a service. So thinking about 4 strategies for growing services and why Holoscale is ideal for small tech services. Well, you have traditional competitive growth, where you have single service units repeating a very simple, clear service over and over and over again. Like, we are a burger and fries restaurant. So we just do burger and fries really well over and over and over again. Or we're a janitorial service, or we are a supply store. Basically, you're providing the same service in a repetitive business unit over and over and over again, and then you're going to either create one single central service location and use internet channels to distribute that location, such as Amazon, in which case you're selling out to a platform, or you're franchising to create many locations to capitalize on location itself and giving away most of the scaling profits to the local speculators on franchise properties, which is mostly a land-based speculation game. Or thirdly, a service vendor that places their various services at whatever third-party location is willing to pimp them out, such as, I'll sell through every channel by every means, and that's like how traditional products were marketed. But imagine being like, I'm going to give a massage anywhere, anytime to anybody. That would be a third-party location general service approach. The second approach is platform hierarchy, which basically says there's a hierarchy to the overall model of any industry. And it tends to be a pyramid scheme with winner take all at the top and everybody underneath sucking up. And so in a platform hierarchy business structure, you have a bundled model of service unit growth, all in one service markets. Amazon, for example, Hulu, Netflix, all in one service markets, creating complicated bundles of one-stop shopping and having to constantly justify increasing menu complexity over time. More and more and more services, more and more offerings in one menu. And the menu service fees are high. Malls, superstores, platforms. And the benefits mostly accrue to the central player, other than advertising and awareness, accessibility benefits. And the thing is that less than 2% of businesses actually win. 98% of businesses have a short lifespan, and eventually lose. Now, let's talk about these all giant businesses. There are thousands of businesses that have survived, older eras, various different cycles and generations of, oil and, agriculture and various different things in history. And they have surviving corporate entities that have big, large managerial, multi-generational socioeconomic structure. And the way that these businesses are dealt with in the 21st century is by unbundling them to create various different functional structures that can then be remarketed. So let's say you're talking about Wells Fargo as a bank, or Merck as a as a pharmaceutical company. You would take certain aspects of their company, such as HR, marketing, finance, and say, wow, you guys are some of the world best at doing that sort of thing. So let's unbundle the corporation and let Merck sell HR services to other companies. And if we can't get around the regulators, we will basically spin off or create new subsidiaries as B2B tech services so that we can create virtual organizations where various different big banks, big marketing companies, big, HR companies, whatever these big old consulting firms, companies are, they create various little subsidiary categories to provide services for the rest of the world economy, using the economic clout that they have to push things around. This is where Salesforce comes from. This is where your elite MarTech, FinTech, HR tech companies are coming from. They are unbundled corporate service units that had some relationship or connection to other businesses. And now they are rejuvenating themselves by selling services. Now, here's another approach. Suppose you hate all of this and you think that organically scaling new companies and creating a new business class of petite bourgeois is a great idea. And when I said that ironically, because the only reason we don't like the petite bourgeois as a concept is because they sell people out. So what if they don't sell people out? What if they are the white knights or the Jedi, the Rebel Alliance that protects the main street, the middle class, the cultural diversity, the creatives, the hope of the next generations. So, a rebel alliance bundles rebel energy. They create a bundled project that reunites various smaller B2B tech companies that are new challengers to the old incumbent firms that are unbundling. And what we do is we create a single alliance, project by project, to support a little cluster of B2C industry development. You pick a certain area like virtual reality or augmented reality or large language model AI or simulation AI. And rather than trying to create a consolidated company under a megalith like Google or Microsoft or whatever, you create boutique mini structures, small hacker groups, meta clinics, lifestyle brands, community events, little rebel alliances that provide a secure and protected cartel of Main Street businesses in that metaphor that share a user base, share B2B verticals, but the businesses remain independent, can compete in outside markets, and have a lot of autonomy in deciding how much they give up in terms of equity or management control to the group. Why Holoscale? Why would you choose this particular strategy over the others? Why is this something that we promote? It's first of all, it's ethical scaling. It's a unique reputational advantage that you can say, we beat the game, we disrupted the ethical trap of hierarchy, and we created a scalable middle class of businesses. Secondly, high-tech alliances have technical advantages. They can move fast and create more value in a very complex, fast-moving industry where even large language models are updating on a month-by-month basis. And so high-tech alliances are structured to be timely, to be these interglues between various different fast-moving technical areas, to study them, report them, re-explain them, represent them to core brands and to core organizational groups to say, look, let me constantly update the sense of what we're trying to achieve as a group. And those sense makers are employable and they're very important, just keeping pace for the team. And thirdly, holoscaling says that we should collaboratively share value. In other words, we should capture it and share it creatively in a more equitable fashion. More of a bell curve than a steep power law winner-take-all game that lowers cost of innovation and raises industry revenue pie. Now, there are still high and low performers, high and low profiters, but instead of being extremely exaggerated, comical billionaire scale inequalities, you have millionaire scale inequalities. So let's first squash that curve. I would love to see 1 million millionaires as opposed to 1,000 billionaires. And so we can incrementally squash that curve by consolidating that wealth in middle-class businesses that are collaboratively owned and developed with creative input. So you're talking about a much broader advancement scale so that a large number of people have an opportunity to collaborate and create. Now, how is this different from platform cooperativism or like some of the hippy-dippy projects that failed in the last 10 years? The difference is we understand how business works. We understand upstream and downstream. And in the software model, upstream and downstream, which is what we, in material supply chains, we replace that concept with back end and front end in social and software services, where the front-facing partners provide end-user services to various different markets. Clinics, malls, retail points of interaction, and they could specialize or they could generalize, right? And Back-end tech partners focus around internal business processes, finance, marketing, HR, product development, development operations. And they could be elite experts in technology trends in these inside operations and create smooth, continuous development in those spaces during periods of revolution like we're experiencing in the 2020s. And what you end up getting is these complex upscale and downscale networks, and what fits in between is a cross-functional holo team, which is a project that can uniquely simplify the complexities of what the back end and the front end are trying to work out. You create simple yet plentiful configured projects. And so holoscaling is about collaborating on a general, accurate, simple center to what's going on the back end and the front end. And to make that work both for businesses and also for stakeholders, especially consumers. Now, how do you build this? Partner selection suggests you should use a rule of two, which says you need some military type redundancy, where if one thing fails, somebody else can bail you out. If a particular back-end partner falls short, then you have at least some redundancy to make sure that they can pull through. So you have at least two fintech partners, at least two MarTech partners, HR tech partners, product development partners, and strategic partners. And you can play them off against each other to make sure you can triangulate and ethically and methodologically ensure that all the back-end processes are checked and double-checked and will not fail. They are competent. And you do the same thing on the front end, which is to make sure you have a collaborative group that lowers the ego. Despite their confidence in being a brand or a solution, they also understand that there's a lot that they will never be able to know simply because human beings are complex and there's 8 billion, in projected. And you're talking about being able to have some redundancies in understanding humanity. There is no company on earth that has a lockdown on humanity. There is no individual or person on earth that understands every market segment, every group, every end user, or every way to satisfy them in terms of competences. So what you can do is collaboratively associate several like-minded front-facing partners to collaboratively scale their front-end knowledge and service. So you have a cluster of smaller back-end tech partners and a few larger front-facing partners that try to do market capture. So back-end tech partners do market creation, front-ending partners do market capture, and the holo space in the center, which is dominated by a holoscaling mentality, is how to coordinate creation and capture. Example competences on the back end include service partners such as AI-assisted marketing technology, which is super hot right now, influence-driven MarTech agencies, which focus on the human element of marketing, AR/VR-based HR tech, which focuses on the embeddedness of human resources rather than the abstraction of it to numbers and names, which is so 20th century. Complexity science product simulation, which focuses on understanding the interactions between every possible angle for how a service could be applied or used, and all the positive and negative implications for everyone throughout the whole ecosystem. So you need a complexity science partner to simulate the product effects and the process effects. A fintech partner to finance the entire corporate network, to make sure it's coherent and affordable. You have for investors to take risks. And then you have B2B event sales promoters who make sure that all of the most important events and happenings around the world synchronize and create seasons for the budding ecosystem and industry that you are developing. Now, on the front end side, you might have multiple competences. Each individual company will have at least two, like service management and hardware, or medical trialing versus supply chain management, IT systems versus brand management. So if you have like a couple of these, that is enough to justify your worth to the industry. A single service company should be absorbed because they are not complex enough to understand how to create front-facing deliverables. So Holoscale companies should share these core competencies in a little bit of an overlap where company one shares with company two shares with company three, and they all can mutually profit from each other's knowledges. Now, the four core parts of a Holo team. Now, a Holoscale project is a uniquely configured project consortium. So think about a world-class advisory think tank of designers and strategists that oversees the complexity design of this project to make sure it's actionable and has a timeline and a set of world-class insights, TED Talk level, custom speeches for this group, and hands-on, incubation and advice from world leaders. So like a master class within the company to make sure that the best results are possible. Then you have front-end project leads that are the representatives of the front-end companies to make sure that they maximize their competences in the project. The back-end project leads do the same on the back end to make sure no technical stone is left unturned. Holoscale project managers coordinate day-to-day activities to accelerate business accessibility and to each other, and also their comprehensibility and their exchangeable competences to make sure they're getting the most out of each other's work and abilities. And then the Holoscale event reps represent the Holo team at all the world's most important events and coordinate sales and investment points of contact with the team. The life cycle of a particular Holoscale project is that we start with evaluation. Do you fit this Rebel Alliance? You need to have the basic strategic compatibility to complement other companies' competences. In development, do you personally fit the project? Which means, in human terms, do you have the right human competences to launch an MVP-type project collaboratively with your peers, or did you actually fail to execute your abstract concepts? You have to actually be real collaborative entities that walk the walk, not just talk the talk. Then, in the pre-launch phase, which is in a much longer extended phase, the question is, do you fit the investors in the events that we have generated as pipelines? Do you fit the various ways to get funded and ways to generate revenue? Can you capture the timely attention of others? And what we do is we take you through that cycle. When we come out the exit for a post-launch, the question is, do you fit the growth strategy? Which is, even after launch, can you 10x your business avoiding betrayal of any of your partners or pre-agreements or commitments? And also, can you 10x your business without being distracted as to the original goals? This is the point where you need to pause on evolution. During the post-launch period, you need to halt any sort of evolution that would violate your original contract's ethical norms and opinions, and can you execute? Once you have completed this cycle of post-launch, you can reevaluate your relationship to other future scaling activities and agreements and start all over. At the next cycle, can you envision a new Rebel Alliance with a new scaling MVP product that gets you to the next level of intensity and scale? Can you then pre-launch the cycle with investors and events, and then post-launch the growth trajectory that again could eventually 10x those relationships. Now, why would you do it this way? Why would you form a holo team that cyclically scales you in a holo step? In all, by scale and scope. Well, the first idea is that lower power distance in a holo team rapidly accelerates outside the box thinking and beats conventional thinking. This has been proven in various forms in various times of industrial revolution. Secondly, a nimble think tank style environment hosted in a particular holo team is fast and nimble for cutting edge tech deals and is ready to deal with extremely rapid change. So don't bear the psychological burden of rapid change yourself. Share it with the experts of that psychological burden. A think tank they beg for the kind of problem solving, masochistic difficulties that you dread. So give it to them and let you focus on delivery. Now, third, a holo team minimizes functional redundancies and maximizes the pace of learning and radical development. So what it means is that rather than do the same thing twice in the industry, we will minimize the number of times those same things need to be done. And this gives you the communist benefits that Karl Marx was looking for when he said capitalism was mostly a redundancy model and destructive at a very high cost. So efficiency says, don't relearn the same lesson a gajillion times. Form a consortium, learn the lesson once, share the lesson broadly. Then maximize the pace of learning and radical development that you can achieve during a period of phase transition. Finally, partners of such an arrangement will be treated fairly for whatever they have contributed, even if it's hard to explain by traditional logics. Partners can come up with exotic and special and personal contracts to profit share, labor share, and IP share. A holo team is particularly competent in making those unique relationships, whereas some philosophers will talk years around how best to profit share. A holo team will give you a practical contract in a matter of minutes about how to profit share. And so the whole point is that a holo team here can get big results without giving up equity or management control and making sure that we have a bigger Main Street and middle class of all kinds of creatives in the future. Why us? So why would you trust me and the team that I work with? I work with world-class expertise in ethical cooperative business. I have known some of the world's greatest ethical scaling thinkers, people from Michelle Bowens to Lee Felsenstein. The idea is that there are so many pioneers in how to ethically and cooperatively scale business. The gap is mostly selling to people that it's more about the efficacy of this process than about a moral imperative that never seems to be achievable. So instead of moralizing to people about how you need to, behave in a nice guy way, you need to convince people that being good pays. And world-class ethical thinkers try to figure out win-win, collaborative, complex solutions so that we can have our cake and eat it too, have our fun and be nice guys. It should not be a trade-off between being good and enjoying life. Secondly, avant-garde high-tech business networks. Me and my friends work with the cutting edge and have done so for decades. And we love following the work of young people, developing the work of young people, relating to young people, and thinking an entire generation ahead about how young people of the future will surpass the young people of the present. And we focus on high-tech business networks that are comfortable with this constant generational overturn. And the idea that the middle-aged people tend to be defensive to protect their own skin because the economy is rigged that way. Now imagine if we rig the economy that middle-aged people do not need to be defensive or protective culturally or technically or economically, but can actually benefit from the progress of the younger generations collaboratively. That is what high-tech avant-garde business networks can produce. And if you hang around with those people, you will see those sorts of insights. Finally, a team culture. How do we interact with each other? How do we behave day to day? All these lofty ideas are one thing, but do we actually just like each other, enjoy each other's presence, have fun, relate in a way that isn't flaky, isn't distractive? It's not like we're putting our head in the sand while the dystopian future is rolling along. We can actually justifiably believe that we can have fun bringing in a better world. So a team culture like that, it has existed in various points in world history where you needed think tanks that really were in love with the future, but were extremely sober about bringing it about. You know, the moonshot projects of our history, the projects such as the Manhattan Project, basically said the world is a serious place. But what we're looking at in the 21st century is an integrative of serious and fun. A genuinely empathetic think tank and accelerator hybrided that we would say, goodness, can we create thousands, hundred thousands, or millions holoscale type projects so that we have a healthier, happier economy? Well, the only way to prove it is one project at a time. And so what we want to do here is do exactly that. We want to explain why you are the missing link and how we could recruit you to specific holoscale projects and show you at places like South by Southwest, Augmented World Expo, various different med conferences, scientific conferences, could tap into the Santa Fe Institute of Complexity Science, Burning Man, the events and the happenings of the world. And as we're moving forward, those are going to be new events and new happenings over time. And what we need is partners to be the missing links to the future. And why we want to help you and accelerate you and develop you is that we believe that things are possible in business strategy that have never been done before because of new levels of technology, cultural understanding, sociological sophistication, but most importantly, the potential for peer-to-peer empathy, where we look at each other as global peers in a cosmo-local, complex environment that is like a hologram of beautiful rainbows waiting to happen. Shine light on that prism, align things, and we could become amazing. So, long story short, if you enjoyed this presentation, consider the idea of holoscaling businesses as opposed to all the traditional VC and captured business scaling approaches. And talk to our team